What's up, bodybuilding fans? Dave Palumbo here with an RX Muscle news update. The Toronto Supershow has let out, and we have a winner. Jon Delarosa, following up his win last week at the Puerto Rico Pro with a even more polished, much more professional look. And this, in my estimation, is probably Jon Delarosa's best that he's ever brought to the bodybuilding stage. And at this stage of his career, to be able to do that and nail that, that's something special. Because, guys don't necessarily improve as they get older. Sometimes they get worse. Jon is getting better. His conditioning was stellar here. I've never seen him as detailed. And he won a tough fought battle. It was not a blowout by any means. Obviously, Iain Valliere packing a lot more size and mass on. Probably bringing comparable conditioning, but maybe a little flat here from what we've seen of him in the past. But Jon just, has the lines, the tie-ins, and the professionalism, I think, on stage here to really to bring this one home. Josh Wade in third, obviously looking tremendous. But let's talk about Jon Delarosa. I mean, this guy's been competing a long time. I've known him for quite some time. He lives, he breathes, he eats bodybuilding. This is his passion. This is his livelihood. He loves this sport. He is always looking and exploring for new ways to better himself. He's worked with many different coaches. He's tried different training styles. I know now he's working with Neil Hill, who's a perfectionist in his own right. Jon is actually even living down in Florida now, and it served him well. Puerto Rico was not his best. New York was not his best. He keeps getting better and better. This was his best. The question is now, can he bring this to the Olympia stage? If he does, he's going to be dangerous. He's going to be a guy that no one expected. But let's talk a little bit about what it took for him to win here today. Iain Valliere has got oodles of muscle. I mean, from what he came from when I first saw him turn pro at that amateur Olympia, Latin America, he has just packed on enormous amounts of size, and it looks good on his body. It's not ugly size. His waist stayed small. He's got tremendous width to his lats. He's got great taper. He's got great cap delts. He's got every showy body part that you could possibly want. Awesome legs, striated glutes. He was a little flat here today, and that might have cost him the victory because he's a lot bigger than Jon, let's face it. But Iain has to come in full, and he has to have that pop, that graininess. Because I've seen some pictures of Iain, and he's competed at certain shows where his look was almost Dorian-esque with that grainy, granity-looking muscle. Like you could just tell he trains heavy, trains hard. He's been doing it a long time. And it's just good quality muscle on his body. And I think that he's going to be a top 6 Olympian at some point in the future. If it's not this year, it's going to be in the next 1 or 2 years because he's got that quality of muscle. I think he can work on his presentation a little bit more, just a little bit, just so that your eyes kind of jump to his body. I think he could be a little more dramatic on stage. But he's good. You can tell he works on his posing. His presentation is there. This is a guy, the next show he does, he's going to win, and he's going to probably qualify for the Olympia. He ran into a top-quality competitor in Jon Delarosa. Seasoned, once again, great tie-ins. He's not tall, but he's got everything in the right place. And he doesn't have any weaknesses. That's really Jon's strength is that he has no weaknesses. His only weakness in the past has been his inability to get into the best condition of his life. He has a tricky physique, and it's easy. I think he has an easier time putting muscle on, harder time losing it. He put it all together here today, and that's why he won. What could we say? What could we possibly say about Josh Wade? He always brings it. I mean, he's probably one of the most consistent guys on stage in terms of conditioning. He is probably just as hard as the other two guys here. He's got just as much muscle as the other two guys here. So, why does he place third here? Because it's not put together in the same way that Iain's and Jon is. It's on his body. It looks good. He's got good back width. He doesn't have a big waist. He poses well. He has, once again, grainy conditioning. He's probably got the best balance of fullness and conditioning of the two guys, but he's not as round, and his tie-ins are not as good as Jon and Iain's, and that's the reason he finishes third. The only reason. Without Jon and Iain here, he wins the show. So Josh's strategy at this point should be to keep hitting show after show because he seems to be able to do it. He seems to be able to bring the same level of conditioning and polish every show he shows up at. He probably has enough points, or he's pretty close to enough points to go into the Olympia already. But if he hits the right show, he could walk away with a victory for sure. But he's a guy that has to be right there, and everyone else has to be a little off. The guys that are genetically better than he is. but that's the biggest compliment I can give him, because he's so consistent that he's always right there and very, very dangerous. So I think this top three here in Toronto gave the fans all that they really needed right now. They were looking for a close battle. They were looking for guys that were all in condition, that had a lot of muscle, and that's what they brought: conditioning, muscle, and a great show and a close contest. And that's what we hope for as fans when we watch a bodybuilding show. A lot of times we get guys out of shape. A lot of times you get guys that are not quite as big. A lot of times you get, a blowout. And when there's a blowout, it's not that fun. Well, the guy wins and it's like, okay, Kai Green won the show. Everyone else is, battling for second through fifth. Not so here. It was certainly not a given who was going to win this show. Jon worked hard for this victory. Well-deserved. He deserves now some time off before the Olympia. And I'm sure he's going to take a couple weeks break, and then he's going to get right back to work with Neil Hill. So for now, though, this is Dave Palumbo with the Toronto Super Show RX Muscle News Update.